your life is on the line and you know that you're on an oxygen tank and they're going to put two in your head, see what you do. Because the bottom line is that me, I'm one person. I can never miss.
Guy's not being loyal to you. How could you be loyal to him?
Yeah.
And whether you're your father or not. So, you know, but it's always been hard because it was my father.
The word came down, this guy had to go. You know, we didn't know nothing about him until the last minute. And I liked him. I liked Billy. He was a nice guy, but...
Welcome to the show. Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Pasquale Pontiac. What's up, man?
What's up, Staxx? What's happening, bro?
How have you been?
How are you? All right, hanging in there. It's fucking 100. No, it's a cool 99 right now. Yeah?
Yeah, it's not too bad, man. At least it's not muggy where you're at, right?
No, it's muggy today. It's about 30% humidity. Wow, you're fucking good, you know?
It's about, what, 70 here, probably?
Yeah. What's up, bro?
Chilling, man. What's good, everybody? Louis the Lion. Before we get started, make sure you guys hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell so you can get my videos every time they drop. Yankees 718. What's good, man? Chuck was good friend. What's good, man?
My friends are going to be probably coming into the chat.
So a lot of people knew Chunk, huh?
Chunk.
Did a lot of people know?
Chunk.
A lot of people knew him.
The what?
He was a well-known guy.
Oh yeah, Mikey was from Trog's Neck in the Bronx on Tremont Avenue. That's where they came from. My cousins. Yeah, Mikey here. I miss him so much, man. I can't believe when that happened. You know, it was crazy. You know, it's 18 years already. But Mikey was a ballsy kid, my cousin. You know, and
they grew up two brothers, right? Yeah,
Mike and Chris, my two cousins. You know, and believe it or not, at the beginning, man, my cousin Mikey worked for ABC Studios, The View.
The TV show?
Yeah. He was the stage, you know, they used to move all the equipment and everything for The View.
Wow, man.
And he wound up catching whatever you call it, Lyme disease from hunting, and he got bit by a tick. You know?
Mike did?
And yeah, he got bit when he was a kid. He was about maybe not even 18 years old, you know? And he had a bad experience with him. He wound up catching a seizure, and my cousins had to go down there and pick him up. And ever since he had that, his whole life had changed after that. You know what I'm saying? He was an honest kid.
Was he already involved with trouble? When did he start getting in trouble? How old was he?
They always hung out because they were from the Bronx, you know? They knew all these guys. You know what I'm saying? Mikey was with Ralphie Balsamo. And he hanging around, you know, they're kids. They were always mischief, getting into trouble, you know? And then that's what wound up happening. And it was crazy, you know? He wound up hanging out over there and all these guys, you know? And, I mean, it's a street life, you know what I'm saying?
How old was he when he first got arrested? Did the brothers get arrested together?
No, they like I remember when I said my cousin Mikey, right? He got caught out in Suffolk County for this was years ago, man, for grand larceny back then. You know, I think they took a car or something, you know, and he got locked up in Suffolk County jail. And my cousin worked for the sheriff's department over there. And when she seen this, she was going through the paperwork and she was, what the hell is he doing here? You know? And she ran to the back, to the holding cell where he was. She's like, what happened? She says, I don't know. I didn't do nothing. They came and grabbed me. She's like, Mikey, you live in the Bronx and you're out in Suffolk County, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, and he was Yeah, so they had to get him out. My cousin got him out, no bail. So basically, he got out, and they were always getting into trouble, my poor cousin, He, I don't know if anybody's out there, they got to be familiar, and they'll know right away. When he was around Ralphie Balsamo, he was always a very tough kid, very balls of steel, And what happened with him is just they started running the streets, and they allegedly said that he had a heroin ring, not a heroin, a cocaine ring, delivering, on the street. They were doing the Bronx, Westchester County, all over the place,
I noticed during my research, I noticed that a lot of heroin dealers allegedly in the mob would come from that area. And I didn't even know that the majority of the bosses and everything came from your neighborhood. Yeah,
from Pleasant Avenue. Yeah, it all started with the East Harlem Purple Gang running the streets. And now you had, back in the day, you had Genovese was a stronghold there on First Avenue, 115, Fat Tony. And then you had on Pleasant Avenue, you had all bookmakers, Shylocks, number runners, and all the jump pushers. And there was a whole bunch of them. And you started Manny Madonna was one of them, who had Nicky Bonds. You had Johnny Echoes, Ernie Boy Abamonte. You had Molantini. You had Fat Gigi and Glacy. All these guys, now they were all part of the Purple Gang,
Yeah.
And these guys started coming up in the early 70s, 73, 74, and the predominantly flooding that avenue. Everybody knows what Pleasant Avenue is synonymous with, which is pretty much high-level drug dealing, So basically,
like kilos and
that shit used to come in from the French Connection, right?
Yeah, they had the ports and shit back then.
This is where it used to come through. It would come from the poppy seeds from Turkey, Then they would take it to Sicily and process it into morphine, and then send it to Marseille, France, where they turned it into Babania, And then from there, he used to go to Montreal, up through Montreal, through the, what's his name? Not Rizzuto's. Back in the day, it was the Catronis in Montreal. He used to come down through New England into New York, and 3/4 of that shitload was coming through East Harlem on Pleasant Avenue, And all these guys, like my fathers, my uncles, there was so many of them. I mean, it was more dealers out there than you had hair on your head. You know what I'm saying?
But a lot of times, people in the life tend to deny being involved with drugs.
Yeah,
right?
but you got to understand something. Pleasant Avenue, right? 95% of them guys on Pleasant Avenue were all renegades. They weren't made guys. So they had nothing to do with it. And Fat Tony that want nothing to do with drugs. Nothing to do with it, So that's why it was that area. It was like that, There was no area pretty much in the country like Pleasant Avenue back in the days,
Yeah, the pictures are wild, man.
Yeah.
Crowds of people and
where's this? I'm trying to see. Yeah, there you go, East Harlem. Now you got a lot of guys that came from East Harlem, Now you're talking about the Purple Gang, they originated, and then later on in the is when Michael Meldish and Joey Meldish took over. Late 70s, because the Purple Gang wasn't pretty much, there was about 35 members and over 100 associates. You know what I'm saying?
Let's talk about how Mike got linked up with this guy.
Ralphie Balsamo. I remember Ralphie Balsamo. You see how heavy he looks there?
Yeah.
Like all puffed up. Ralphie was a skinny guy, man, maybe 160 pounds. You know, they owned Balsamo Funeral Home on Westchester Avenue in the Bronx in Palm Bay. And my cousin used to hang around with him, you know, as they were kids. Ralphie was older than him. Ralphie was, I'll tell you right now, Ralphie's got to be close to Chris's age. My cousin Chris, Mikey's brother. But my cousin Chris never liked Ralphie Balsamo. He goes, how did they give this guy a button? He couldn't hurt a fucking fly, you know? Which they said is true, you know?
Some people, they have other abilities, you know?
Yeah, but he, you know what, because he owned the funeral home there, and they come from money, you know? So they used to always just say, yeah, the only reason why they took him because he's got the golden egg. He's the goose with the golden egg.
I mean, a funeral home's pretty damn lucrative if you're the one supplying the bodies to it, right?
That funeral home, Balsamo, has been around. Oh my God, the father opened it up. Dutch Balsamo, the father, Ralphie's father. You know, and that thing is going back close to 80 years. Yeah. Balsamo Funeral Home.
I got a picture of it right here. I'll show you guys.
Yeah, on Westchester.
So what did they allege that Mike and Ralphie were involved in?
They was selling coke allegedly, you know, delivery services, and they were running good. Yeah, that's Balsamo. That's on Westchester Avenue. That's theirs. That's the original one. Yeah.
Did Mike get in trouble before this happened? Before everything came to an end?
Yeah.
What kind of things did he get in trouble for? And was Chris getting in trouble with him at this time?
No, Chris. Actually, my cousin Chris, very good job. He was an air conditioned HVAC man, and he was working in the World Trade Center. He used to work all over the place, you know. And like I said, and he used to tell his brother, you know, hey, yo, you got to tone it down. You know what I mean? Because you're heading for trouble with all these people you're with. You're not watching out, and they're hearing things, you know. But Chris, at the beginning, Chris was working like, you know, Mikey was working too. But when he got sick with the Lyme disease, I remember everything just went. It was sad, man. You know, like how he just said, like it seemed like fuck it, you know.
Yeah. And
going and doing things, you know. I mean, he used to go out there and work, but then it happened, you know. And he just, it's hard, you know, because it hurts here, you know, when I think of this shit, you know. 29 years old, what happened to him? But he running the streets, you know, making money. They were all making money, you know. But then you got to get away from this guy. And, you know, the brother used to tell him, you know, stay away from that guy, you know. You don't need it, you know.
Chris was involved with the same thing as Mike, right?
Later on, after Mikey passed away, my cousin Chris got involved too, you know. I was like, what the hell is going on here, you know? And I feel bad, you know. Because I used to say to him, I says, you never learned from what happened to your brother? And I used to tell him that all the time, and he used to look at me, you know. I says, look what happened to your brother, and you never learned from that.
So do you want to tell the people, do you want to walk them through that day of what happened to your cousin?
Exactly. It was December. Well, it happened like 6 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 in the morning. Nobody knew nothing. You know, I'm at work, you know, and about maybe 10 o'clock in the morning, I get a phone call from my brother. And I says, yo, what's up, man? He says, yo. He goes, Chunk's dead. I says, what? I go, what are you talking about? He says, the cops killed him. They came in the house and did a no-knock warrant. and there was shitload of them outside. They broke in at about 5:30 in the morning, and nobody was up. So now they hear all this shit going on. Very small house. My cousin thinks that they're coming to rob him. They never identified themselves. It was all New York State troopers. And you know who signed a no-knock warrant for him?
Who?
You remember on the People's Court, Judge Janine Pirro?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, she
used to be a real judge. Like,
she is a real judge. She went up and she quit the People's Court, and she went up to work in White Plains. She was a judge in White Plains.
Here's a picture of that day.
Yeah, that was horrible. I remember that shit, man. They were all over the place, man. You know.
And the trooper got shot, right? She shot the cops too.
What happened was they were working their way into the house, you know, small house, and they get to the back, and their intelligence, well, he's in his room, you know. When you walk in the back, go to the room, that's straightforward, you know, and to the right was the bedroom, and to the left was the other bedroom. And they went to go in and open the door to go apprehend him, and he just started shooting at them. And he shot one cop. He shot the cop in because they had all the riot gear on, like you seen there. He took a shot. He hit the one cop in the helmet, and then from hitting the helmet, he took another shot. The other cop that got hit in the helmet shot the other cop in the ankle. You know, and then they went down and they just started unloading on him, and they hit him twice and killed him. They left him on the floor. You know, and it was crazy. You know, it was on every main page. It was on the Post. It was on the Newsday. It was on the Daily News. It was in the New York Times. It was all over the place, you know? And it was just like...
When something like this happens, do the people that he's hanging out with in the streets, do they show up to the funeral and things like that?
Actually, Mikey was funeral. There was... Balsamo, there was people waiting outside again, and just put it that way. The funeral home was in Ralphie Balsamo got paid for Mikey's funeral. They laid him out there. It was a closed casket. But there was people. He was very well liked. You know, there must have been at least 200, maybe more people there. You couldn't even walk. You would walk inside. You're waiting online, and you would walk in, and you would have to go in and out and weave and get into by the casket, which was closed. You know, and we were all just sitting there, and everybody was coming in, paying their respects, and hanging out in the vestibule on the side and outside. And this was going on. This went on for 2 days, bro.
It's sad, man.
You know, and it's just like, you know, what fucking gets me mad. You know, excuse me. No, I was going to call them feds. They weren't feds. They were state. How do you sign no-knock warrants, you know, and then just busting on people?
That's putting the cops at risk, too, just busting in someone's door without, you know, like, they got big balls to be busting in people's doors without knocking, man, because you're taking a huge risk on getting shot.
And you know what was crazy, right? After what happened to my cousin here, you remember from the Bronx there, Leo Brancato?
Yeah.
2 weeks later, after this happened, right? Leo Brancato down in Pelham Bay got caught climbing through the window with that guy. They were robbing him with his girlfriend's father, and they wound up shooting the guy and killing him.
And he was a retired cop, right? He was retired or something. Yeah,
he seen what was going on, you know, and he went to get up to go after them, and the guy shot him. And that was not too far from. I remember when that happened, I was like, what the hell's going on? And then they give Leo Brancato gets 3 years because they said, oh, he couldn't be part of the murder. The guy, they were all high, and the guy made him climb through the window to open the window for him to get in. Yeah, because the guy couldn't get in. Yeah.
Yeah, he was all messed up on drugs, trying to get steal things for money to get more drugs, right?
From where I come from, you're with somebody, that's an accessory. I think he got treated because of his star status. They only gave him 3 years and left him out, and only charged him with robbery and D&I breaking and D&E breaking and entering. You know
what did the guy that he was with get? Do you remember?
Got life. He shot the guy, killed him, but if that was one of us and nobody was a star, you're getting charged with murder, conspiracy to murder,
100%.
capital murder. Yeah.
100%.
So that's what I seen. I said, look at this shit, man. You look at the treat this kid is getting, and my poor cousin is dead. You know?
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
I mean, they want to allegedly. The only reason why they pretty much raided that house because my cousin was with Ralphie Balsamo, and there was always cops in front of Balsamo funeral home, always taking pictures. Them guys, you know, forbiddenly.
Here's a picture of the alleged. Here, here's the alleged drug ring.
Let me I got my glasses on. Yeah. There you go. I can't see that too clearly on the phone. Who's there? Who's up in the?
It says the group charged with drug running, running a drug ring in Westchester.
Yeah.
Michael Chunk.
Who's the first one? My cousin?
Andrew Shea.
I don't know these guys. Only one that I knew there was what's his name?
Joseph Larzo.
Okay. One guy that I knew in here. Keep going.
John Toro.
Yeah.
Torero. I can't even read any of those, man. I can't see it.
Well, let me explain. I can't see over here, but one of these guys was the lady that used to watch me, Ginzy Cayano. Her name, that was her maiden name. Her grandson was part of this because I remember after Mikey got killed and they all went to trial, right? Not trial, they copped out pleas, and pretty much all of them got from 8 years to 15 years. You know?
So, what was Mikey allegedly a part of the Genovese crew?
Yeah. He was out of the Bronx, you know? And
you said he was a wild guy. He used to put his hands on people, right?
Oh, Mikey could fight, man. He didn't just take no shit. You know what I mean? Because everybody that he pretty much beat the shit out of deserved it. You know? Because I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. There, Nicky Cirillo, who was Quiet Dom Cirillo's crazy ass son, you know? And he disappeared like in, what was it, 2000, early 2000 around there, you know? And he totally disappeared, and they said, what's his name did it? Vinny Gorgeous and Dominic Sicali. They snatched him on orders from Quiet Dom to kill his own son.
And do you think that's true?
I don't know, man. The only thing I know, the kid was gone, and Dominic Sicali was taking the blame for it. But there's a crazy thing that I'm going to tell you, right? Dominic Cirillo used to live, well, after he retired, supposedly, was living in Long Beach, Long Island, where I used to live. And my mother worked in the church, you know. She was an ordained minister. She give out the Holy Communion and everything, you know. Yeah. And she used to walk in, right? And she goes, "You wouldn't believe who I seen in the church, on his hands and knees on the altar." I'm like, "Who?" She's like, "Dominic." I was like, "Get the guy, says, get out of here, man." I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "He's on his hands and knees on the altar praying." And he used to do this all the time. He used to come in the church. And I said, "You know why you do that?" Huh?
Dominic Sicali, is that?
No, Dominic Cirillo, Quiet Dom.
Yeah.
Quiet Dom Cirillo used to come into church, and my mother said,
"You know why, right?"
What?
You know why.
Of course I know why. And my mother's like, he's sitting there and he's praying and praying. I said, "You know why, Ma, right?" She's like, "No." I figure he's just trying to get closer to God. I said, "No." they allegedly blame him for killing his own son, having him killed. You know?
I got a picture of him. I'm trying.
Oh, Nicky or Dom? Quiet Dom.
Dom. I got a picture of Dom.
Dominic Cirillo.
Yeah.
Quiet Dom. Yeah, he was the acting boss in '97 of the Genovese family. No? There's Dominic. Yeah, that's Dominic right there. He's getting arrested. Quiet Dom, yeah. Quiet Dom was from East Harlem too, but he moved up to the Bronx later on, yo. That's Dominic.
Have you met him? Have you ever had dealings with him?
I never met him personally, but my father knew them. Everybody knew them for the neighborhood, but his brother, Dominic's brother, whose nickname was Ouija, I forget his first name, Ouija Cirillo. He wasn't a wise guy, but he was from Pleasant Avenue. He used to have a club on 1st Avenue on 15th Street. We knew Ouija, but I never met him personally, Dominic Cirillo. You know? But I knew the brother. You know, and my father was in there. They were friends with everybody over there. You know, whoever came from East Harlem, my father, my uncles knew everybody. You know, pretty much we all knew them. You know?
I definitely 100% heard the name Pontiac within the mob. All the research.
Pontiac is synonymous, you know what I mean?
100% I've heard that name.
Yeah. My father was a legend there, and he started in the early 50s. I mean, the early 40s when he came home from Leavenworth. You know, and they just kept going and.
Sicali Rat Disgracia.
Who said that?
The vodka. E.G.
What he
Vodka. This is
that's
brought
Dominic
to you by E.G. Vodka.
Wait, is that Dominic Sicali there?
No. He's commenting. Sicali Rat.
Dominic Sicali. You know what I mean? It's like, and then he blames Vinny Gorgeous. Vinny, if he didn't open your mouth, I'd never be in this position. I gotta laugh, you know. They knew. I asked Dominic Sicali if he knew my cousins, but pretty much there was a big age there, you know. And Dominic Sicali, 2005, he got pinched. You know.
He's telling a bunch of tales. I hear, man.
Who, this guy? What's he saying?
No, Sicali is.
Oh, Sicali, he could talk, man. You know.
You can talk and talk and talk and talk.
He was supposed to do a thing when they do. You know that, right? They were supposed to get together, Dominic Sicali, and then Dominic Sicali's getting together with Michael Franzese, too.
I don't know. I don't deal with any of them.
You know, but I got to laugh, you know, because it's just it's crazy with everybody. You know, they hate each other, you know. But that's their problem, right, Staxx?
To me, they don't exist. So how can I hate you if you don't exist?
Exactly.
It's pretty simple. Yeah. Great show tonight, Mr. Staxx. You know, Lion always supports you and your channel. Thank you, Louis the Lion. I appreciate that. So, now, Patty, I want to talk about Mike's brother, Chris.
Chris, there he is, my cousin. The Veal Shank Redemption. I remember that, man. I was on the front of the post, man.
The Veal Shank Redemption.
It was a thing taken out of the movies. I was laughing, you know. Yeah, they Chris, right in that picture there, he was almost 300 pounds, man.
So you know, them two were pretty big, right? Together.
Mikey was about like Chris. Yeah, Mikey was about 5'6", 5'7", but he was stocked. That's why they used to call him Chunk, because he looked like a chunk of meat, like a chunk of muscle, and he was like a barrel-chested, you know, strong kid, you know. You know what I'm saying? He could. He was just like a powerhouse. He used to beat up the brother, man. I'll never forget one time I went out and picked up my cousin Chris, right? And I had plans to meet him on a Saturday morning, right? So I go and meet him. He's like, "Yo, you got to come around the block, right?" I said, "What do you mean around the block? I'm coming to your house." He goes, No, come around the block. I go pick him up. Now, back in the day, my cousin Chris was a raging alcoholic. And he was out for days and days. And they were looking for him. My cousin, his mother, his father.
Yeah.
And he goes, I can't go back there. He goes, you got to come with me. You know? I said, what's going on? You know? He goes, I've been out for 3 days with some broads, you know, I'm drinking and everything, you know. And he's like, I'm afraid to go there. He goes, my brother's going to beat the shit out of me. I go, what do you mean? Mikey's going to beat you up? He goes, yeah, him and my father, they want to fucking beat the shit out of me. You know? And Mikey would have picked him up and started shaking him like a friggin' salt dispenser, you know? But I never forget. I told her, I said, listen, I said, let's go to the diner over there on Tremont Avenue. I said, let's get something to eat, get you sobered up. You know? And then he goes, all right, he goes, I feel good, let's go back. I go back in front of the house. My cousin starts going after him. You son of a bitch, you got mom and dad worried. Where the hell are you? You're not answering your phone or not. We thought you were dead. You know? And
yeah,
he's like,
I mean, back then you couldn't just take off and disappear because of all the mob things that were going on, right? People were coming up missing and things.
yeah, it was you know, it was just, and and back then, you know, I'm talking like 1997, 1998, and they were good kids, you know. Mikey never did. Mikey was straight as an arrow. You know, he never got high. He hardly ever drank. Saved his money. You know, did what he did. And Chris was the opposite. He would go to work and he'd go and blow all his money and go drinking. You know.
Yeah.
And thank God, finally he straightened out. My cousin Chris. Somebody knocked him in the head. It might have been Mikey. You know. And my cousin hasn't drank still to this day. Well, he can't drink. He's locked up. But he was clean over 10 years before he went away. But
how does he get linked up with these guys?
Okay, this is what happened.
The Michael Meldish situation. How does he get linked up with this whole?
Michael Meldish was the leader of the Purple Gang. Everybody knows that. And my cousin, I used to tell her, I used to go, Chris, because he always asked me, you know, because on his side of the family, there was nobody in organized crime, you know. That came from my father's side of the family because Chris is on my mother's side of the family. My mother's sister was Chris's grandmother, you know, and Mikey's grandmother, my Aunt Celia. And they were always up in the Bronx, and they were always like, you know, I seen this one, I'm hanging out with this one. I said, what are you doing with them? Oh, they're good guys. This is nice. Says, yo, you got a great job. You're making almost $100,000 a year with overtime. What do you want that for, you know? And, oh, you know, it's cool. I said, it ain't cool, bro. So what happens is after everything happens with Mikey, you know, he don't learn, and he's working everything. And then he gets a job down at the Trade Center when they were building a new one, you know?
Yeah.
And then he would go to work, and he would come from the Bronx and drive all the way down there with his van, go to work, right? And this is like 7 in the morning, and he wasn't getting home till like 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, you know?
And this is after the murder happened?
No, this is before. This is after Mikey died. Yeah? Who's that?
It said Meldish, but here's all the people that got arrested for Michael Meldish's murder, right?
Yeah, from the left. That's Matty Madonna.
Yeah.
The acting boss of Luchese, Stephen Crea. Allegedly shit. My cousin Chris and Terrence Caldwell. They all came out.
Terrence Caldwell is the alleged shooter.
Is the alleged shooter. Yep.
And what role did they allege that Chris played in that murder?
They said my cousin was with him, riding around. You know, they were hanging out. They were going out to eat. Him and Michael Meldish. You know, they were bouncing around. You know, because it was November. I'm trying to remember, November 15th. Know why I remember what day it was? Because it was the eve of my cousin Chris's birthday. The next day was his birthday. On the 16th of November. And this happened on November 15th. And they used to go around. He used to tell me, yeah, I go with Michael Meldish. He takes me to all his clubs, takes me out to eat. You know, I said, what are you doing with him, man? You know, he's going to get
Meldish is a dangerous guy, right? He's alleged to have killed a lot of people in the past.
Michael Meldish, they say, killed a dozen people, but Joey Meldish, brother. Joey was a serious guy. You know, I was friends with him. My brother was friends with him. My cousins were friends with him. They say Joey Meldish killed about 40 people. He might have killed more. You know, and that's how my cousin met Michael, because Joey Meldish rented an apartment right next to my cousin. You know, in the Bronx, in Trog's Neck. And he never knew him, you know, because he said to me one day, he goes, you know who moved in next door to me? I'm like, who? He's like, Joey Meldish. Just get out of here, man. I says, I'm coming up to see him. You know, I went up there. I said, where's he living? He's like 2 buildings down, you know? Yeah, that's Joey right there. Joey Meldish.
He looks pretty
Joey a fucking nutcase, man. You look at him the wrong way, he'd shoot you, you know?
What's the alleged reason why they killed Michael Meldish?
Michael Meldish, allegedly, there was word out there that he borrowed $100,000 off Manny Madonna. And Manny Madonna, I guess he was taking it, the money, so allegedly, and taking it and either putting it out on the streets for Shylock or buying drugs with it. And Manny was like, you know, where's my money? And Michael Meldish told him, fuck off, bro. You know?
Yeah, but why would he kill him? Because then you're not going to get any money, man.
Because out of you don't tell a person where it got out there in front of people like Manny Madonna to go fuck yourself. So now he tells him that's a threat to him. He's got to take him out, you know? Because if he don't, what do you think's going to happen? Somebody's going to try to do the same thing
to you, right?
To Elijah, he's the boss of this fucking piece of shit. What a piece of shit!
What happened to this?
He ratted on Chris. He was all wired up when he was in MDC with my cousin. They threw him in. They both were in the shoe together. And Frankie Pasqua was all wired up, and he was baiting my cousin, talking to him and all this shit. And my cousin's talking. You know, who knows this guy? They sent him in with a bug on. And the piece of shit that he ratted on his own father, Frankie Pasqua. You know? I mean, please, I get disgusted every time I see that.
Prison. He's a cooperating informant, and he's in prison right now.
He's in prison. Allegedly, he was choking his son.
Wow.
That's how much of a tough guy he is, that he's choking his son. You know? Because Frankie Pasqua III, his grandfather, Frank Pasqua Sr., was good friends with my father. And he never met his grandfather because they kept him away from there, you know? His mother and his father, Frank Pasqua Jr., they were divorced, you know? And Frank never met his grandfather because that wouldn't have happened if his grandfather was right. I think his grandfather would have murdered him himself. Because his grandfather was a white guy with the Gambinos. He was involved. He was with Frankie Lucasio out of the Bronx.
Freddie says if Joey was out there, they would have never killed Michael.
Who said that?
Freddie says if Joey Meldish was out there, they would have never killed Michael.
Believe me, you know what would have happened there? I'll tell you the truth. I mean, it would have been harder to kill Michael, because Joey, you know? There they go. Michael knows, Michael Meldish and Joey Meldish. Michael knows right over here. I think he's the one in the middle because I can't see too good. That's the boss of the bananas right now. Michael knows Mancuso.
Yeah.
Joey Meldish here and Michael Meldish. That was like in Jesus Christ. late 70s. See the automatic weapons they were running around with?
Yeah, yeah.
They were serious guys, man. You didn't fuck around.
They're alleged to have, I mean, Michael Meldish. I've heard crazy stories about that dude.
Michael Meldish, let me tell you. Remember Joe Coffey? That was the boss of the New York City Organized Crime Task Force.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, they were trying to get Michael Meldish for years. They could never pin nothing on him. You know, nothing. Not even the feds. They couldn't arrest this guy. You know, for all the shit he was doing.
Since 2013, gangster Michael Meldish took a bullet to the head on Friday night in a grisly exercise of mafia reputism. The killing, all signs of the genuine bona fide mob hit, old school in all the ways. Meldish, whose brother is currently serving time in prison, has been a notorious hitman believed to have killed more than 10 people in past 2 decades. He spent running the Purple Gang. His reign ended on Friday night around 10:30 p.m. His body was found in the driver's seat of a rusty Lincoln LS on Throg's Neck in
Ellsworth Avenue. Yep.
Yeah. Michael was a stone cold killer.
But he was like a pimple on the ass compared to his brother Joey.
Jeffrey Coffey, commanding officer, NYPD organized crime task force.
See,
tried for years to pin murders on Meldish. That's crazy. They said that. Did
you see in the article? You know what happened when they found out? When they found out he was murdered, Michael Meldish, right? Listen to this one. The whole office where Joe Coffey ran, all the detectives in there, they started applauding, clapping their hands, fucking high-fiving each other. Because he was dead now. Yeah,
I'm sure they do that. I'm sure they do that when all kinds of people die. Like,
yeah, but especially him because they couldn't
people that they chase because the government hates these people, man.
And like, come on, man, you guys are law enforcement. Even though you didn't like the guy, you're applauding his death because you guys couldn't call him. You know,
like in that article right there, they said we tried to pin murders on him.
They couldn't do nothing. You know why?
Says he couldn't get any witnesses. People were terrified to cooperate.
People were terrified. People were terrified of them. You know, but if you lived in the neighborhood or were from the neighborhood, they didn't worry about you. It was just other people, you know? And nobody would say nothing, you know? These guys, they were so notorious that a lot of made guys were petrified of them. That's why they lasted a long time, you know, because they said, you know what it was like? It was like when Fat Andy Ruggiano and Tony Lee Guerreri, they robbed the card games, remember?
Yeah.
Back in the 40s and 50s. And these guys took a look at them and they said, listen, either we could whack them, get rid of them, or we can tag them, make them, and they work for us now.
And then they kick up money to them.
Yeah, but look at all these guys that came from there. They were all bosses. Matty Madonna, Michael Nose Mancuso, Danny the Lion Leo, Angelo Frisco. That's all these guys who were bosses of 3 to 5 families, bro. What does that tell you, you know?
Tons of people, man, came from that neighborhood. That's what the reports are. A lot of people came from Brooklyn and places like that, but it seems like a lot of people came from Harlem.
The Black Hand, that's where it originated first. In East Harlem on 106th Street.
Morello, right? Clutch
and Morello. Mm-hmm. And his two brothers, his 2 stepbrothers, the Terranova brothers. And you know what else came from East Harlem? That was up here? Frank Costello, Lucky Luciano, Carmine Galante. I mean, this is just talking back then, you know? All these guys were from East Harlem or were born here and went out, you know? They were all part of the 106th Street crew over there at the beginning. That's where they They all came into there, and then when Lucky Luciano, because back in the days with the mustache pizza, the black can, Joe the Boss Masseria was from up here, you know, from East Harlem, you know, and that's why the 116th Street crew from my neighborhood, when the one Fat Tony used to run, one of the most strongest crews, and it's still going. They originated back in the day, in the turn of the century.
And back in the day, people had a lot of respect for Fat Tony. They wouldn't fuck around near his club or anything.
Fuck around, bro. No, you couldn't fuck around. I mean, you come from that neighborhood, you know, that neighborhood where you used to leave your doors open at night, nobody gonna bother you. You know, windows wide open, no one's gonna bother you. But it was a close-knit area, you know, from where I came from. Fat Tony, you know, Fat Tony had a ton of, he was like a number king over there. The guy was grossing back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s numbers every year. 5 billion, just the numbers, you know?
What was he doing with all the money? Keeping it on the street?
It was alleged, right? Fat Tony, he had the club on 115, the Palmer Boy, right? Now, he used to sit, when you used to walk to 115, right, you would cross over the street and there'd be a fruit stand there. And Tony used to sit in that fruit stand with the chair, the wooden chair. I used to laugh. And he used to sit there and he used to hold court, you know? Meanwhile, he lived right on top of the fruit stand, right? And allegedly, they said he had $1 million in shoe boxes in his closet, stacked up from the floor to the ceiling. Just cash laying there. There it is, the Palmer Boys right here. Fat Tony, where's Fish? Fish is this, Fish right here. Dominic, what was his last? I'm trying to remember. Vincent the Fish Cafaro. He became a witness, and he testified after he was testifying in the Windows trial, but he was a bad witness, huh? Yep. Oh, this is how it was over here. He used to walk up. See Tony sitting there?
Yeah.
That's the Palmer Boy. Remember the shot I sent you that day, and I go, whose club is this?
Yeah.
That's the Palmer Boy right there. And they used to see everybody coming in, because right up the block from there is where we used to have our social club. You know, like my friend of mine had it, you know? And we would walk down.
When they would have meetings, would they have meetings just right inside, or did they have like a courtroom in the back?
They were going inside. It was like a dingy club. You used to walk in. It was very old, you know, and there was tables in there. There was a kitchen, but it was very old, you know, and they used to have meetings in there. And then a lot of times they would be on the corner where I told you, on 115 and First Avenue by the food stand.
All summer, right?
Yeah, all the time. They used, Fat Tony at his club right there, right? He used to have men guarding the 24/7 a day. Yeah, they should stand outside, or they would be around, and they would watch that club that nobody came in there at nighttime. You know? That's
smart, man.
Yeah, but you know what happened? His downfall was when they got pinched for the commission trial. When they went one night, right? It was Thanksgiving, 1980. Trying to remember when they started doing all that surveillance. It was like 84, 85 when they started doing this, is, you know, planting bugs everywhere. Tony told his two guys, he goes, listen, it's whatever you call it, Thanksgiving. He goes, I'm going to give you guys the night off. So what do you think happens?
They go in on that day.
The Fed come in, right? They go, holy shit, they're gone. And then they found out, they go, yeah, Tony gave them the night off for Thanksgiving. They were like, oh, gee, Tony, you're a nice guy, you know? They went in. They crawled underneath the club to put bugs in, to drill up and set everything out. While this guy was setting all the bugs, he had rats nibbling on his ankles and his fucking legs and everything. And the guy was bugging out.
Yeah, he's in the crawl space underneath the club.
Crawl space under the club. They wound up bugging that club. They got audio out of it, you know, and that's how that whole thing started, you know.
He basically hung himself in that one.
What were you gonna do? I mean, there was did you ever hear a story about what happened? Who was that? Tony right there? Yeah, it's Tony. My man. He was a nice guy, you know. Everybody's like, oh, he was a killer. He was always nice to me as a kid, you know? Asking me, where's your father and everything. That's, you know where my father is, Tony. I used to laugh, you know? How's your father? Where is he? Because when at the end, when Tony passed away, because Tony went to jail and he passed away. He went to jail in 87 and he passed away 13 years later in Springfield Medical Center. And my father was there because my father, you know, he always had to be being monitored. They used to bring Tony up cigars, you know, and then my father left there, you know, because he was there trying to remember, 90, no, it wasn't, no, it was 89. And Tony they had just sent him there because he had cancer, you know? And
so
my father.
Where did he live? Didn't
Fat
he have
Tony?
a house though? Yeah, didn't he have a house though?
He had a farm up in Rhinebeck, New York. He used to go there on Thursdays. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, he was in East Harlem. He was doing his business. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Yeah, there's Tony right there. That's him in, whatever you call it, in Springfield with Tony Ducks. They were both together, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, and,
right?
huh?
He's with Corallo in there.
Yeah, they were all sick, you know? You know what I'm saying? What am I saying? Tony Ducks died in 2000. Excuse me, I apologize. Fat Tony died in 92. That's what I'm saying, because I remember when he went away, he was only gone for like maybe 5 years and he died. You know? Tony Ducks died in 2000.
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to, but they were together. That was in Springfield, Missouri, in the medical center.
And they all got 100 years each.
They got 100 years. Carmine Persico was already in jail. He got 139 years on 2 different cases, and he was away already. And Tony Ducks, Fat Tony, got 100 years apiece. Christy Ticfinari, the same thing, the underboss of the Lucheses. Bruno and Delicato got 40 years for the Carmine Galante hit.
And he's out now, right?
He's been out since he came home. Yeah. He did 79. How many years did he? He got a 40-year bid. So back then he did out of 40 years. Usually before they changed the law in 87, in June of 87, they changed the law in the feds. Back in the day, if you got 20 years, right? Like my father, when he got 20 years in 1980, he did a little less than 13 years, and they used to let you out. Now, on 20 years, you got to do close to 18 years. Yeah.
Here's a new picture of Bruno and Delicato.
Bruno and Delicato still around, man.
Fresh off the press.
He just got out. He got old. Wow. Holy shit. He's got to be about 76 years old, Bruno. Because my father was good friends with his father.
He killed
Sonny
Carmine Galante. That's insane, man.
Yeah, but he was a kid when that happened. That was in 79. He was let me tell you something, Bruno Delicato was a good-looking dude, man. He had tons of women. You know who he married, right?
Who?
He married Jimmy the Gent Burke's daughter, Kathy Burke. And you ever hear the story? There's Bruno. See how young he was?
Yeah. Tell me the story, man.
Bruno and Delicato married Kathy Burke. And you know why? Because him and Vinny Gorgeous, remember when they did the Lufthansa heist?
Yeah.
All right. They were wondering where all the money went. Remember? Because Jimmy started killing everybody. You know, gave them a couple of dollars. And he says, Jesus, I ain't giving them all this money. You know, he had to give Paulie Vario, $1.5 million off the top. Yeah. And the rest of the money, whatever he gave his guys to begin with, you know, and they kept asking him for money. He had all the money in a safe deposit box, and his daughter, Kathy, had the key. So what happens? They find this out, right? So Bruno is married to Kathy Burke, and Vinny Gorgeous is buying. He's like, yo, I got access to Jimmy Burke's money. So what happens? They go in there and they talk. Jimmy Burke had another daughter, Robin Burke. Yeah, that's right there. There's Anthony. Look how young he was, Bruno. And they took the other sister, right? And they said to her, listen, we need to borrow some money out of the deposit box, you know, because we want to do something, and we'll give you the money back, plus we'll give you 2 points on it. So that's $20 on every 1,000. Guy had fucking almost $3 million in there. What do you think happened?
They went in there and took all of it.
They took little by little, and then they kept coming back. Vinny Gorgeous was going on junkets, you know, with the gambling, renting Learjets, going to Vegas and going to Monte Carlo and going to all these places, betting like crazy.
So he just go in there
They
like
went through all the money. They went through all the money, bro. And then when Bruno Intellicado's wife, Kathy, found out, she hit the ceiling, and because they told the other sister, they kept going back there. We need a couple hours, they went through everything.
Oh my God. So what happened, man? No one's
getting.
What's the kickback for them taking the money?
Say again?
What's the kickback for them taking the money? What was the repercussions? Anything happen?
Nothing. What are they gonna do? I mean, think about it. Jimmy Burke is long gone. He saved all that money for his kids, and she was holding on to it because they couldn't. I mean, all that money that went. You know, he took all that shit, and they had to wash all that shit. You know, and then all the jewelry from that. You know, that fat Andy Ruggiano and Tony Lee Guerrero. They were the ones who got rid of the jewelry. You know. And after they robbed Lufthansa, they all went to Fatty Andy's club in Ozone Park, the Liberty Social Club on Liberty Avenue.
Yeah.
And they had a party there. Remember in Goodfellas when they're having the party?
When he's like, what's that car, man? Fuck you bringing that car here?
That you see the guy who did that? Johnny Roast Beef, Johnny Williams, that played the guy who they found him dead in the pink Cadillac.
Yeah.
Johnny Roast Beef is my godmother, her brother's stepson.
I'm lost, man.
Johnny Williams. That he got a break in that role because I forget what happened. He was just an actor coming up back then, you know? And he got tagged for that role. But that's exactly where it happened. In Ozone Park. They had a party there and all these guys are pulling up. I don't know. That was based on the guys out of Brooklyn that did that. Pretty much. Angelo Seppi was the guy that got killed. He came from Jimmy Calandra's neighborhood. And they found him dead in the car. In one of them big condos or something. They found him dead. They killed him. You know, but they used in the film, see what they used, you know?
There was a lot of bodies popping up around that time, right?
Well, what do you expect? I mean, this guy didn't want to give the money up. Went to
No, I'm talking about just back in the day in your neighborhood.
Oh my, forget it. I remember as a kid, right? Now, when we moved out of that neighborhood, I was born in '66 in May. And we were living in the tenement buildings we were living in 325 Pleasant Avenue. And my father came home one night. And there was guys going around trying to kidnap all these money makers. You know what I'm saying? They were snatching people. And they snatched, the first pretty much they snatched was a guy named Whitey Marsh from East Harlem. They snatched him for ransom. And what winds up happening, this is a bad story too. Whitey Marsh, they got him all tied up and shit, right? And I guess he had a blind over his head. They were trying to cover his eyes. And one of the guys wound up taking off his mask. And he seen him. And he goes, you motherfucker, I know you. What they did to him? They killed him and they cut his head off.
Oh, man.
So they lost out on that. Then they went and kidnapped Jiraj. Jiraj was Jerry Zaffondino, was from the Pleasant Avenue connection, a friend of my father. He was the one in the book. They grabbed him the first time. We got a ransom for him. Maybe like 6 months later, they snatch him again. Right? Now listen to this one. They're in the car. They're going to take him to the safe house where they used to keep everybody, right? They stop at a red light. All of a sudden, a marked New York City police car pulls up next to them at the light.
Yeah.
Jalaz gets out of the car and he starts talking to the cops. He got a cigarette or something. And he stood there. They had to leave. He got away, you know?
That's kind of like the story of the guy down in I forgot his name, down in Philly. They kidnapped him, and they kidnapped someone, and they were bringing him to I forgot his name, man. They were bringing him somewhere, and he jumped out right in front of the cops, and the cops ended up arresting the people that were kidnapping the dude.
You know, you see what happens, you know? But it was crazy, you know? So they what happens is one night, we had a restaurant my father opened up on 73rd Street and 3rd Avenue. And it was called Grandma's. So it was a big place. My father built a 100-foot bar there back in he opened the place in 64. So one night he's closing the place, you know, it's like 4:00 in the morning. He's locking up. And he comes outside, right? And his car was parked. He's keeping right out front. And like 2 months before that, he had bought a brand new Grand Prix. And back then they were offering, if you wanted to put electric locks in your car, it was extra, you know? Because they didn't have electric locks back then.
Yeah, they had to install like a box and then you have the thing.
Yeah, so my father does that, right? So now when he's getting into his car, right? You know, he's getting in, he starts the car up. You know, it was the winter, it was December. It was like right before Christmas time, you know? And he's starting the car up and he's getting it ready, you know? And all of a sudden he hears a knock at the window. And he looks up and he sees a badge at the window. Pontiac, it's a feds. He goes, you got to come with us. And my father said, well, this and that. And all of a sudden you hear tapping again, right? The guy's got a gun to the window. And he's telling my father, you got to come out and come out. So my father's like, you know, hold on a second. I gotta do something over here. So my father locks the doors real quick with the electric lock so the guy couldn't get in. Meanwhile, then the guy's like, my father's like, you want me? You got to follow me. You know, and the guy's tugging on the door. He can't get in. He's banging. My father backs up, goes forward on the curb, on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And he takes off, and the guy's trying to get in. You know, and he flies down. You know, comes around, he goes up 3rd Avenue. Yeah, he goes up 3rd Avenue, heading north up until East Harlem. And they started chasing him. My father, you know, he was a good driver, my father, you know. And he's digging in and out, you know, he loses them. And he comes to the house, and from what my brother told me, he would say, he goes, pack everything, we're out of here.
I'm sure that type of shit happened a lot in that neighborhood, man.
They were snatching
everything. We gotta go.
There was so much money in this neighborhood, it was unreal. I was a kid, right? And I remember coming back because we moved out to Jersey when we left there. You know, my uncle was out there ready, and we went out there, and my father bought a house for like $11,000, and it needed all kinds of work. So my father winds up putting in, now this is in the 60s, bro. He put in 286.
Going back and forth, right? Back and forth.
We used to go back and forth, you know, because my aunts used to live there. My mother's sisters were still living there. Her brother was living there. And we would go over there on the weekend because we used to have my grandmother's apartment on Pleasant Avenue. So we used to use that, you know, because my grandmother she was still there, but she was getting old, you know. We used to go in and check on her. You know, my mother used to go in. We used to stay there. And I can remember looking at all these guys, people walking up and down Pleasant Avenue with Macy's handle bags. Remember the old bags?
Yeah.
And you would see a lot of people going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. As a kid, I didn't notice that, but then I used to ask my father, I said, Dad, I remember as a kid, these guys walking up and down the avenue with Macy's bags. He goes, yeah, you know what was in there? I says, no. He says, millions and millions of dollars and millions of dollars in heroin. That's how they were transporting everything. You know? And they would come down.
People shopping.
No, because in all the tenement buildings, they would have where they used to cut everything up. you know. And then if there was cops coming to go bust one, they moved to another one. And shit was like you see, like in Frank Lucas, with their all cutting shit up and out in there, and they're wearing masks.
Yeah,
that's how big. You could go to Pleasant Avenue, 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 o'clock in the morning. Borrow $100,000. If you wanted to go rent the friggin' Uzi, you could rent an Uzi. If you wanted to fix a judge, you could fix a judge. And if you want to buy multiple kilos of heroin, yeah,
that's crazy, man.
They used to say,
yo, we got to end the story right here, man.
All right,
but we'll bring it back. We'll continue this at another time. We'll schedule another show. But I appreciate you coming on tonight, man. Is there anyone you want to give a shout out before we go?
Let me give a couple of people a shout out there. Elaine, if you're out there, you see it? And my man Sean from Long Beach. Sean Wiggins and Elena Palazzo and whoever else is out there. I mean, who knows who's watching me or watching us, I should say, you know?
Yeah, man. It'll be a good time to have you on again. Shout out to Cindy, Benjamin, all you guys that watch the show. I really appreciate you guys taking the time. Freddie, Buffalo Bill, Louis the Lion, all you guys, man, really means a lot to me that you guys watch my show. Make sure you guys hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell so you can get my videos every time they drop. And if you don't like the show, too bad. Start your own podcast.
Hit the like button and subscribe. You know?
Definitely, man. Thank you so much.
That was a good one, everybody out there. Thank you for watching. You know, and believe it or not, this is my first time on Ever Alive.
And we got another show that we recorded a few days back. It's going to be dropping in a few days. You guys are going to like that one. So hit the like button, subscribe, and if not, go somewhere else.